think the thing that I'm going to say about Quaid is after going through all of the information that I've written down and the things that I've said, I didn't realize that I might have been describing dissociative identity disorder. Yeah, the movie Split, that's what that thing is about, where like the different personalities are actually different, like completely separate. Something I had said to Blaine was that I'd come across the fact that if you have any sort of neurodivergence, but especially any kind of autistic tendency, and I had thought that the reason why we got along was because of a shared ADHD, like ADHD on one side and autism on the other. The thing is that my two sides talk. They're like the three chipmunks where they actually, they'll have it out with each other, but they're in concert. They're in conversation. Um, I don't think his are. And I think that that's actually where my like panic responses kept coming in, is that he will be the little guy and he will also be the big guy who is beating the shit out of the little guy and not remembering that they're the same person. You know? Like that one side is a bad thing and the other side is the winner. There's this book from almost like 7 years before I was born, but I went over that the other day too. What was it about? Oh yeah, it was talking about the two hemispheres and how you actually have to integrate the two. Like you have to deliberately shift into your right hemisphere to be able to draw, because your right hemisphere is actually the one that's better at spatial perception. Your left hemisphere likes to have an idea about like what a chair is. Your right hemisphere can look at the chair and see it, right? For what it is and actually get like the perspective right. And that's how you can draw faces. That's why you end up with people who they seem like they're good at drawing everything else, but they're really bad at constructing humans. And it's because they can't see it for what's actually in front of them. They have an idea of what face should look like, and that interrupts their ability to be able to perceive. That can happen on the inside too, where my mom, I think, actually has this, where it's like a protective mechanism. To keep yourself from ever thinking that you're a bad thing, right? So you literally keep whatever part of yourself that you don't like in a fucking box and you won't look at it. You know. And if anyone like tries to be like, "Hey, so by the way," they think that you're being mean to them, right? Trying to give them a bad feeling, because that's why they keep it in the box. So with something like dissociative identity disorder, this is taken to like a fucking professional level because it's practiced every single day of their lives, right? Where when you go, "Hey, you were just screaming at me 10 minutes ago. Like, I still have the spit on my, what, like, what? Why don't you remember slash know slash, it's because they've been practicing not knowing, not looking, not, like the Peter Pan with the shadow. It's like that, where, yeah, everyone else can kind of see it when they're in concert or caring or deliberately trying to empathize or understand. But the being themselves fucking refuses to, because that's such a bad feeling that it'll click them out of their awareness, right? And so a lot of the time, this is actually the case with Jeremy too, where you try to keep him comfortable. You try to, make the bad feelings go away because you can tell what a friction, conflict is happening right in front of you, right? The weird thing to come to awareness of is that that conflict, that friction, that is created. It's a choice. It's an absolute choice. And it's so that the bad feeling never has to happen. The thing is, you have to feel shitty for a second. If you go, "Oh, I fucked up," right? And then you can move on because you go, "How do I not do it like that next time? How do I actually consider the being who I just hurt next time better?" Instead, you go, "No, that makes me feel bad." And so you won't consider it at all and go, "No, you're bad." And you punish the being that you were just hurting, right? To assuage the feeling, to displace it, so that now that you don't have to contend with it. That leads to a fracturing inside self instead of a growth, coming to completeness, coming to comprehension, right? It literally is malevolent to your own growth and awareness. And that ends up being a disorder. When I was talking about the way that Jeremy was grooming people out at that shop, I knew it was serious and that there were consequences for the people. I didn't realize it could actually be causing fracturing in the people that he's influencing, right? Like, not letting them come to full comprehension of themselves so badly that, yeah, no, they boot that part of themselves into the mind cage. And then also they try to delete it on purpose, right? This is actually kind of a big deal. It's like almost everything that I've talked about recently is kind of a big deal. And most people want to shut me off, shoo me away, No, go back to being comfy. Go back to being the teddy bear. Go back to being the thing that gives me good feelings. The thing is that on the other side of comprehension, there are very good feelings. Yeah, you get to feel at ease, at peace, like in understanding, like after the aha moment, right? Like after the ah fuck, there's also the oh, that's how to, right? Growth, comprehension, real humanity. Um, Even with the closest relationships in his life, and this is something I mentioned about Jeremy too, like his parents. His dad, in his older years, wanted to be involved at the shop, right? And Jeremy was getting pissy at him like he was somehow trying to take something from him. To the best of my knowledge, Jeremy is an orphan. He was chosen by those people deliberately. Like, would that not make you feel wanted in some way? Right? And with Quaid, I've been told that there's some kind of sexual abuse. Okay, me too, for like over a decade. That does not have to be something that just stays stuck in the machine, in the, like, that is something that you can become aware of, come to comprehension, move past and through, and be a better being for it, right? The way that I had felt with Jeremy for the first couple years was like this protective thing, right? Like that trained into me by my mom, right? Never let her have bad feelings. Never always try to take it away, try to fix it, try to give her some understanding, some sense, and whatever. That just led to me being juiced for my entire life and having my consciousness and comprehension then stolen and stanked on. Like, no, she's the bad thing, right? Like an identity swap, like Golden Fleece or Shield of Amalthea, the Greek ones. That's silly. Like, that was how many millennia ago, that they were practicing that? And they were practicing that because there was incomplete comprehension on this planet. And because they had some kind of story about there being a creator god, right? Any of the people who have these stories of there being creator god and not believing that they're actually part of this place, this planet, like the idea of evolution is that we all started as Luca, as a single celled, we made a containment for ourselves, right? And our consciousness and our idea for growth. And then from there we expanded, came into relationship, right? Like the way that cells work together is the way that humans are supposed to be working together. And if you don't understand your own primordialness, right, like the from whence it all comes, can you ever actually be a complete whole big being, right? Like, can you be your fully human giant self? Or can you ever get in touch with your oversoul? Or will you always think that's some sort of outside God? Or, like if you ever had a parent, I can understand where that concept comes from, that there's something bigger than you that's going to tell you how it goes, right? In my mind, that's a big old fiction because I've never had a mother. I've never actually had a father that like had himself enough to be dad, to be God to me, right? So it's not cynicism, it's just sort of a comprehension that DMT gnomes are not something outside. They are probably your glial cells, right? They are probably a smaller part of you, a fractal of the whole being that is like, hey, do you remember me? Like, right? If you can understand the tiniest parts of you and the tiniest parts of whence you came, and then when you have children, you understand that they have all those same, like a Matryoshka doll of the pieces that fit inside of the pieces, then you can have respect for them all the way up to, planets, the world, bigger organisms or aggregations of consciousness, like communities, right? Because all of these are embodiments and it's just scales up. But if you can't have respect for the cell, if you can't have respect for the single part of your consciousness, if you're literally beating on an organelle that you have compartmentalized and like shut off from the rest of your brain, could that not turn into cancer because you're literally telling your body it's a bad thing? It needs to be attacked, it needs to be kept under control. Like, is that actually why people have chunks of themselves that needed to be chopped off and out? Is that why they end up with like things wrong with their bones, things wrong with their structure? That's a good way of putting it. Because they literally end up attacking the temple because they don't understand that the temple is them, right? I don't know. Food for thought.